Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video, we're checking out the Bluetti EB3A portable power station. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, Bluetti sent me this EB3A for a fair and honest review, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. Inside the box, the very first thing I see is the instruction manual, and if you're buying a power station, it's probably important to keep that handy and to actually read it. On top of that, I can see some power cables here, and these appear to be solar charge cables. It's nice that they include them. Now, it's worth pointing out that this EB3A didn't come with solar panels, but I do have some kicking around and I'm excited to test them out on it. Opening up the instruction manual, and it's detailed, straightforward, and has a ton of information about the power outputs for each individual port and also the optimal ways to charge it. On the top of the unit, we can see a built-in handle as well as a wireless charger. This outputs up to 15 watts overall. On the right side of the unit, we have some venting in the bottom. So if you're wondering if this is waterproof, I don't think so. And on the left side of the unit, we've got a fan. And interestingly enough, the only time I heard it turn on was when I was charging the unit. When this unit was powering a whole bunch of devices, the fan didn't turn on once. The back of the EB3A is completely blank. There's nothing on it at all. And on the bottom of this unit, we've got some more information about the input and output power levels. And there's also 4 individual rubber feet to help keep this device stable. Here's a quick look at the front of the unit, and we're going to test it out more in detail, but I can see a light on the top right hand corner, and it does work. On the top left hand corner, we've got a 12 volt output port in the same style that you see in a lot of different vehicles, but there is no cigarette lighter included. The ports on the bottom left hand side are all used for input ports, and these are used to charge the device. We've got a 120 volt standard input port, and beside it we've got a DC port that you can plug your solar panel into. There's also a reset button here for a circuit breaker. So by placing my hand over the input ports, you've got a better idea of what you've got for output ports. We've got the 12 volt ports, 2 USB-A ports at 5 volt 3 amp, 1 USB-C port at 100 watts, and 2 standard 120 volt ports at 600 watts. Since you can plug this straight into your wall to charge using 120 volts, it does charge extremely fast. However, I did notice the fan turned on when I was charging it, probably to keep it cool, and the fan does get pretty loud. Here's what the fan sounds like. So at this point in time, I've got the Bluetti EB3A plugged in and pretty much ready to go. I've got a tire inflator plugged into it. I've got my smartphone plugged into it. I've got 2 GoPro batteries, my laptop, which is currently in game. I've also got a random light just to use that other socket on it. And Bluetti didn't know this, but I actually have some official Bluetti solar panels, and that's because I use these to charge the battery on my travel trailer. So if I take a look at the other side of these, we can see the Bluetti logo right on the back. And yes, they plug directly into this thing, and there is no issue whatsoever. I was pretty impressed by that. So at this point, let's go on ahead and turn on these outlets, and that includes my laptop as well as the light up there. And I'll turn on these outlets, which is the USB ports as well as the tire inflator. And I can see right away which outlets are turned on. I can see I'm currently drawing, what is that, 123 watts overall. And although it's flickering on the screen, it's not flickering in real life, and it says I've got 2 hours left of battery life. Now, I did have to move the solar panels a little bit and put them in the sun there to bring in some energy. And if we take a look, they're drawing in about 30 watts right now, which is actually really impressive. So I can see that the energy from the solar panels, which is now down to 25 watts, has bumped me from 2 hours to 2.5 hours overall. And there's currently 95% left on the battery. The laptop here is drawing a ton of power. And now for some fun, I'll run the tire inflator and see what happens. So I'll bring up the screen here. I can see I've got 91% battery life left. So powering everything you see here, the light bulb, charging my GoPro, 2 GoPro batteries, my smartphone, my laptop, which was drawing about 100 watts worth of power, and the tire inflator. I had about 1 hour's worth of battery life overall. Turn the tire inflator off and that increased to just over 2. Add in the solar panels, they go up to 120 watts, but at 30 watts it gave me an extra half hour. And if I wasn't playing games and wasn't pushing my laptop, I could get between 3 to 4 hours overall with this battery, which isn't too bad at all. Bluetti also has an app for Android and iOS. I downloaded it and tested it out, and there are a couple of interesting features on it. So you can use the app to see what exactly is drawing power and how much power, and you can also turn and turn off some of the ports. You can put this into an eco mode and also specify an eco shutdown. You can control the LED light, you can change the charging mode, and powerlifting is a very interesting feature. The powerlifting mode bumps this up to 1200 watts maximum for heating devices. They do say though that the rated output remains at 600 watts and do not power refrigerators, air conditioners, or anything else like that. Now, if we take a quick look at the EB3A on Amazon, we can see it's priced at $300 overall. It's rated for 600 watts, 120 volts, and 268 watt hours with a Life P04 battery. Just to give you some context, I'm going to compare it to a jackery. So here's the Jackery Portable Power Station Explorer 300. This one is also priced at $300. And this one has 293 watt hours, so it's about 25 watt hours more than the Bluetti. This thing is extremely comparable, and there are some notable differences. The voltage on the Jackery is 110 as opposed to 120 on the Bluetti, and the wattage here is 300 with a maximum of 500 as opposed to 600. The AC outlets on the Jackery roughly output half of what the Bluetti can do, and the USB ports are also less. The USB-C outputs 60 watts on the Jackery as opposed to 100 watts on the Bluetti. And the USB-A ports on the Jackery are max 5V 2.4 amp as opposed to 5V 3 amp on the Bluetti. Now, all of those specs aside, I think the biggest difference between the two products is the battery, and I would argue that's probably the most important thing. Jackery uses a lithium-ion battery, which is good for about 500 cycles overall, where Bluetti is using a much superior lithium iron phosphate battery, or Life Po4, with up to 2,500 cycles, about 5 times more. So based on specs alone, I'd probably argue that the Bluetti is the better buy, but let's get into what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it and whether or not I'd recommend it. The very first thing I liked, and arguably the most important thing about the EB3A, was how much power it could put out consistently. My laptop draws a ton of power, and my laptop had no idea it wasn't plugged into the wall using this, even when I was using pretty much every other port, and also using some devices that draw a ton of power, like the tire inflator. The second thing I liked was the build quality. It didn't feel cheap, and it's not light, it's just over 10 pounds. But it didn't feel like it was going to break on me, and it didn't feel like it was made with cheap components. And I love that it uses a lithium iron phosphate battery, so if you end up using this one quite often, it should hold up a little bit better over time compared to a lithium ion battery. And now moving into my dislikes, and I've got 3 of them. The first one here has to do with the controls. I kind of wish there were face buttons to turn eco mode on and off, and powerlifting mode on and off. I think that would have made it a lot easier and a lot more straightforward for a lot of people. The second thing I don't like is the wireless charger. I found it to be inconsistent. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. The third thing I didn't like, and this is subjective, but I didn't like that fan noise and how loud it got when it was charging. The fan never turned on when I was using it. I don't know if the fan would turn on in like 30 degrees Celsius weather outside or something like that, but when I was using it, the fan didn't turn on. It did turn on inside. And when it initially turned on, my wife and I were thinking, what is that noise? We didn't know if it was inside or outside, and it turned out to be the Bluetti. So now for the big question, whether or not I'd recommend the Bluetti EB3A, and priced at $300, or even with a $60 coupon priced at $240, my answer here is yes. If you're in the market for something like this, if you're looking at this because you know you want something like this, then absolutely yes. If you're looking for a portable power station, looking for a UPS, a portable UPS, or looking for something to take with you camping, then absolutely yes. Now, it is worth pointing out I haven't tested out the jackery yet, but on paper, the specs for the Bluetti completely blow it out of the water. I think you're really getting a lot of bang for your buck for this. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Shoutouts to Bluetti for providing this EB3A for a fair and honest review. I didn't know what to expect, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Let me know your thoughts about the EB3A in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.